has stories they'd like to tell, but making a movie or writing a novel are just projects that most people don't have time and money for. Comic books are a perfectly accessible medium for you to tell your stories, regardless of what you might have access to. And today, I'll be showing you how to make your own. Before I lose any viewers who might not consider themselves artists, I'd like you to stick around for just a few more minutes, because this video is aimed primarily at you. Let's get into it. So like I just said, everyone has ideas. Maybe it's a one-off premise that you thought sounded cool, or even something as simple as a rewrite of a bad movie or TV show that you saw. If you've ever had thoughts like this and said something along the lines of, "Man, someone should do that," I'm here to say that you should do it. Let's talk about how to write a script. There's no single way to write a script. It's gonna be completely based on personal preference and how much you're willing to put into written word. Some people like to compile mountains of research, write out every line of dialogue, and plan every scene with precision, whereas others are okay with leaving smaller details out of the script, choosing to tackle big picture ideas and story beats instead. With that said, I will provide some of my own advice on writing that's helped me in the past. So you're at your desk, ready to write, your ideas are running rampant, but how do you even get started? I always like to begin my scripts with what's known as an elevator pitch. Imagine yourself in an elevator with someone else, and before the end of the ride, you have to sell them on your idea. This is supposed to be a short, concise explanation of what your story is all about and how it feels. Here are some elevator pitches for movies and shows I'm sure you've all seen. Writing an elevator pitch at the top of your page can help keep you on track if you start to forget what made your original thought so special. I like to use descriptive words that bring me back to whatever I was thinking or feeling when I originally had the idea. You don't have to strictly adhere to this pitch though, and that's important. Your story will very likely evolve into something better. Think of it more as a compass that you can loosely follow during your writing journey. As for the formatting of your comic book script, which is like the little brother of your regular script, this also is going to come down mostly to personal preference. I'll usually write out whatever dialogue is going on the page, I'll describe panel layouts, specific shots, and other details I want my future self to know. The point is that when you sit down and draw, you have a clear enough understanding of what to do so that you aren't scribbling aimlessly, because time management is an important part of making comics. The level of detail, art style, page count, and general amount of care you have for your comic all contribute to how much time it's going to take. If making a comic is a fun hobby that you chip away at in your free time, time shouldn't really be an issue. However, if you're making a comic and you want to get it done by a deadline, these factors are something you're going to want to consider before drawing. Time is money, and if your comic is going to require a lot of time, you want to keep yourself on pace. It's easy to get sidetracked and hung up on small details, especially on large projects. I personally manage myself when making comics by having an average amount of time that it takes to finish a single page. The average per page for me is about 8 to 10 hours, if I keep myself on pace. I section that time into stages of the drawing. An hour for sketching, 3 for line work, 3 for inking, and maybe 3 for colors if needed. I know it can be really difficult to sit and stay locked into a drawing for long periods of time. If you're struggling with this, try setting timers. Do an hour here, an hour there, and then eventually crank it up to 2 or 3 hours, and continue to push yourself. Before you know it, you'll be able to sit and draw for long periods and you won't even feel it. I know that doing this can help you with any kind of work, but for comic books especially, which can be oddly taxing at times, I find this especially useful. And on the topic of money, you might be wondering how much this comic is even going to cost. Well, that's a great question. Aside from the time sink, it's going to depend mostly on how many copies you want printed, the quality of the materials, and the size of the comic, which leads us into the next chapter. Reading up on file sizes, formatting, and other technical stuff has always been irritating for me, so I'll do my best to condense what I know here. A comic book page isn't just a blank piece of paper when you sit down to draw. It's actually separated into 3 separate parts: the safe area, trim line, and full bleed. You don't need this to get drawing, but most comic artists will use paper that has this template built in, and if you're digital, you can obviously just overlay it onto your canvas. Be sure to look at the website of the printer you're going with, because oftentimes they'll provide you with this template and any other specifications you might want to know before you start drawing. The safe area is where the important parts of your drawing are going to go. Things like dialogue, main characters, and really just other stuff that you want your audience to see, that's where it goes. The trim line is where the printer is going to cut the paper, but sometimes it's inaccurate, and that's what the bleed area is for. Make sure that while you're drawing, you extend the picture all the way to the edge of the page. This is important in the event that the printer does make a bad cut. Now let's talk about paper size. There's a lot of technical stuff that would be boring for me to just rattle off at you, so I'll put it up on screen so that you can read it for yourself. Basically, in the US, the size of comics are pretty tall and narrow, about 6.5 by 10.5 inches. Think of the old Marvel and DC comics. That size, for the most part, is still standard in the US, with some exceptions. If you want your comic to be smaller and or cuter, you might like the standard manga size, which is 5 by 7.5 inches. If you're digital, you can just create your file with the exact same dimensions in inches as the full page would be. Remember to check the printer's website for any specifications or templates. I can't stress how important this step is before sitting down to draw. I'm sure you've noticed another setting that you can tweak, DPI. DPI stands for dots per inch. 300 is a standard DPI if your comic is going to be in color, but you should raise it up to somewhere between 450 and 600 if your comic is in black and white. Remember to draw to the edge of the page and really just repeat until your comic is done. Page layouts are also going to be up to you, but a 9-panel layout is pretty standard, but you can modify this to your heart's content and get really creative. Once you have all your pages finished up, follow the instructions on the website of your printer and order it up. But which printer do you even choose? There are many printers to choose from once your comic has been drawn and formatted. If you're looking to order one or a few copies, Mixam, Kablam, and Ready Comics are popular. I've personally used Mixam and I didn't have any problems and was pretty happy with what I got. If you're looking to order your comic in bulk, Comics Wellspring, Printivity, and Printing Center USA seem like good options, though I haven't personally ordered in bulk before. You'll have a lot of options regarding material, texture, size, etc., and I'll just quickly list off some of the most common options for these things. You'll have two main options for your comics binding. Saddle stitch, which is basically just staples and is typically reserved for smaller issues, and glue binding, which is used for larger comics or graphic novels. You'll also have a variety of options for your cover's coating. Gloss is going to be shiny and smooth. Satin is going to be kind of shiny, but also kind of matted, and uncoated is just going to be a full matted cover. As for paperweights, a typical cover paperweight is going to be between 110 and 130 pound paper, whereas the interior pages might be between 70 and 100 pounds. There are a slew of other smaller details, but once again, personal preference. Alright, so I think that's about all the information I have to share today. This video wasn't meant to be a fully articulated walkthrough on how to make a comic, but just more of a nudge in that direction. I really just wanted to lay some groundwork and kind of give you all of the basic information you need to get started. I'm sure there's stuff about making comics that I didn't mention here, but that said, this video should have everything you need. Go make a comic, and if any of you decide to actually do that, I would be really interested in seeing what you guys make. So let me know in the comments, and yeah, farewell everyone.